Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar. So today's a really big day for us here at Toon Boom. We just released version 14 of Harmony. Marc-André, who most of you may know already, is our product manager, and he'll be going through some of our best features that were included in this release. Just a few housekeeping notes. If you guys do have any questions throughout the webinar, please type them into the question section on the right side of your control panel. And this webinar is being recorded, so you can watch it at a later date as well. Give us about a day or two to upload it to our website, and you can always go to toonboom.com/webinars, and you'll be able to see the recording of this webinar there. So I'll pass it over to Marc-André now, and we'll reserve the last 15 minutes for whatever questions you may have throughout the webinar. Thank you.
All right, thanks Desi for the great introduction as always. Please make sure you mute your sound. All right, so as Desi introduced me, my name is Marc-André Bouvier. I'm the product manager here at Toon Boom. I've been working at Toon Boom for over 15 years now, and I've traveled all over the world visiting lots of studios, seeing people work in production, working with freelancers. So I know a lot about the animation industry and how Harmony and animation software is used throughout the industry. So today I'm really excited to show you the new version of Harmony, Harmony 14, which we've been working hard on for the last year. And as Desi said, if you have any questions throughout the webinars, type them into the question sections of the GoToWebinar interface, and we'll answer them at the end. If some of them are relevant while I'm showing some of the features, I might ask Desi to tell me those questions. All right. So as I was saying, today I'll be showing you Harmony 14, and I like to say that, or we like to say that Harmony 14 is the future of 2D animation. But before I talk to you about Harmony 14, let me do a quick recap of Harmony 12. What is Harmony 12? What was Harmony 12? We have to remember that the last version, the previous version of Harmony, brought to us a lot of great features, a lot of great improvements. We've simplified the deformers and enhanced them. We've also done a lot of changes in the timeline to make it simplified and have more functionalities. We've greatly improved the Bitmap brush engine to have more natural looking brushes. We've also improved the rendering performance a lot by allowing software to access all the CPUs on your computer when you're doing rendering. We've added support for OpenFX plugins, and also we've introduced the light shading tool. This version also brought 3 editions of Harmony: Harmony Essentials, Harmony Advanced, and Harmony Premium. Each edition of Harmony is designed for different level of users, and whatever artistic style you want to use, there's a version that's right for you, for your style and for your budget. These are 3 editions that have progressive functionalities, and you can take your art from one version to another going forward in the editions without ever having to lose anything. Everything is compatible throughout. Harmony Premium is, of course, the most powerful version of these editions, and this is the one I'll be showing to you today. I'll be telling you if the features are in Premium, Advanced, or Essentials as I go through, but I'll be using Premium to show you that, as it's the most powerful edition, and it allows you to do any artistic style, whatever it is. All right, so now let's go to Harmony 14. Harmony 14 is actually like Harmony 12, available in Japanese and Chinese editions as well as English. But 14 is now also available in Spanish for the first time. So you have 4 languages that are included in Harmony. It's all part of the same installation package. It's based on what is the OS of the language of your operating system. Harmony starts with the language that you have installed on your machine. So Harmony 14 is the most reliable, the most efficient and creative release of Harmony yet. We've made a lot of improvements over the last year based on user feedback and studio feedback that we've been getting. A lot of fixes, a lot of improvements to the workflow. And we've also introduced some big new features by enhancing the 2D and 3D integration in this version. by allowing to animate individual parts of 3D models. Also, we've improved the rendering quality of 3D models by introducing the deep image compositing. We've added some great tools for artists and animators like layer syncing, outlight mode, improved a lot the pose copier script, improved the easy flipping toolbar, and made some improvements as well to the WebCC. So now let's stop talking and let's go.
Your audio seems to be cutting out.
My audio is cutting out. I'm being told. Maybe I'm talking too loud, or I don't know. Let me plug in and see. Can I plug in into your? And make sure you turn on your sound. All right. Now I'll be able to hear me with a slight delay, which is very hard. All right. So let's go. So Harmony 14. I'll start by showing you the 3D functionalities, and my audio seems fine. Let me know if at any time the audio, keep it plugged. Let me know throughout the webinar if my audio goes bad again, and I'll test it out again. All right, so the first thing I will show you, and the very first new functionality I'll show you is the ability to animate individual parts of 3D models. Why did we introduce this into Harmony? There's a very, very good reason for that. When you're working on 2D animation, sometimes you need to use 3D models for vehicles, for sets, for props, because sometimes you don't want to have to draw all the faces of these objects while you're animating them. So having the ability to use a 3D model inside your 2D animation software is great because you're able to see it and you're able to render it from the same software. Now, in the past, you were already able to import 3D models, like this is the case here, and you were able to select the model and move the model around, rotate the model, animate the whole model. You were also able to select individual parts of a model, but you weren't able to animate those individual parts. So if you made a change, the change would be throughout the whole scene for the individual parts. What we've introduced in this version is a node that's called a subnode animation. And when you connect this in your node view under your 3D model, so right here I'm using the pickup is an FBX model. And when you connect this under the node inside my node view, I'm able to select the individual parts of the model, and I'm able to animate them if I want. For example, I select those two wheels here. I'll go forward in time and I'll spin the wheel like this. Oh, not the whole truck, the wheel right there. And you see that when I select multiple pieces and I rotate them, each of those pieces will rotate around their own axis. So now I was able to add some rotation to my wheels, as easy as that. When I add animation to a piece of a 3D model, this also adds a couple of layers under the subnode animation node or layer in my timeline. If I click on the plus here, I'm able to see keyframes. So I have the left front key, the left rear key. These are the keys that were exported out of Maya in my 3D model. And if I select a frame here and I animate the wheel, you'll see this will add a keyframe, and I'm able to manipulate this keyframe the same way I'm able to animate it and manipulate a normal keyframe on a 2D layer. So it's very easy to animate and retime your animation. So now that I've made my wheel spin and I've made them spin backwards. Woohoo! So now my pickup will go backwards. So I can select the pickup like this. I select the whole model. I take my pickup, I move it forward like this. And then I go backwards like that, and I'll make my pickup go backwards. And I'm using a peg atop of my pickup to move him forward and backwards. Now you see I've animated the wheels, and the wheels make the car spin. Now each of the animation on these pieces are individual, right? I can animate them individually, but if I want, I can animate all of them using the same function. This is something that you're able to do with any type of animation. It's not only 2D, it's also with not only 3D, but also with 2D animation. You're able to do that. You're able to share the function or use the same function for multiple pieces. For example, I want to use the same function for the front wheel and the back wheel, so that when I animate the wheel, the other wheel will spin at the same rate. So what I do is I open my layer properties from the subnode animation. I select the function that I want to use, and I select copy function link from here. Then we'll be able to paste this on the X rotation of the other key, paste function link. And now, if I animate one, the other one follows everywhere that it goes. So now I'm able to easily share functions between pieces of a 3D model or any other type of node inside my scene. In the past, you needed to share the functions from the timeline and then search for the function in the long list. Now we can just copy and paste easily from one attribute to another. Now, one thing that you want to be able to do when you animate individual parts of a 3D model like this, you want to be able to attach maybe a 2D drawing to it. Now, for sure, if I look in my node view here, I have only one node for my pickup and I have one node for my animation or my subnode animation. So how do I extract just the animation information of just one piece? I'm able to do this by selecting the piece, and I see the piece here in my 3D graph. So this is also something that's new in Harmony 14, the ability to see all the components, all the pieces of a 3D model inside the 3D graph. So when I select a piece, it highlights it in the 3D graph. And now I want to attach a 2D drawing to that wheel. So I'll go in my 3D graph, I'll right click and I'll select add 3D kinematic output. When I use this command, this adds a 3D kinematic output node in my node view. It connects it directly under the subnode animation for me, and then I'm able to connect this to a 2D drawing. For example, I have this circle with a spiral here and I want to connect this to my wheel. So I'll just connect it right here to the wheel, and now you'll see that will follow the wheel everywhere it goes. So if I select the wheel and I move the wheel around, my 2D drawing will follow it. So this is how you're now able to attach 2D drawings or anything to a part of a 3D model that you've animated. If you look at the pickup truck, I have also a character in the back. The character is attached to the whole pickup. It's not attached to a specific part. So when I rotate or I move the truck, the character will always follow. I hope everything is clear so far. I don't know if there's a lot of questions.
There are a lot of questions. One of them I'll answer right away. So Andy asked, are there any Japanese anime studios that are using Toon Boom Harmony? OLM in Japan, who are the producers and makers of Pokemon, use our technology right now, and they are creating manuals actually for the Japanese market where they really go into a really in-depth explanation to how to use the technology in Japan with the trends that are happening in that territory. So that's just to answer one question. There's a lot of questions about Harmony Essentials as well. Maybe we can cover them towards the end of the webinar, but basically people are asking what new features are in Harmony Essentials, and specifically what will Harmony Essentials have bitmap brushes?
Mm-hmm. So for sure, the features I'm showing right now, which is the 3D manipulation of individual parts of 3D models, is only part of Harmony Premium, because you need to have the node view to be able to do all the connections between the nodes, but also to be able to do the advanced rendering that you need to be able to blend 2D and 3D together. I have another scene here with 3D assets in it, and this one uses a low quality version of a 3D model that I will render using deep image compositing to have the ability to render seamlessly the 2D and the 3D. Now, when you're working with 2D and 3D integration, you don't want to work in two different softwares, to animate in two different software and then try to match them together in compositing. You want to be able to see both of them together in the same software, and you also want to be able to render them from the same software. So you don't have to add an extra step to your pipeline by going to another software, rendering, and then bringing it back and compositing it together in a third software. And we've been able to do that for a while in Harmony, but there has always been a challenge with the the edges and the transparency inside 3D models, where when you have, for example, transparent pixels, let me go forward a little bit here. I need to turn on my camera. There we go. So I have a 3D model here, and there's a character inside the 3D model, and the character is behind a glass of my 3D model. And when I do a rendering of this, I'll just do a software render, just open my node view here. And when I do a rendering of this scene, how this works is when I'm working interactively, I have a low quality version of my model, which is an FBX version of the model. I can load FBXs, I can load Alembic files, ABC, I can load Collada files as well. I can use any of those formats inside Harmony when I'm working interactively. And when I'm doing the rendering, I want to use the high quality version of the model. In this case, I'm using the high quality version or the original Maya file. And when I'm starting the rendering here by clicking on my little flower, what Harmony does is it renders all the 2D artwork. And when it reaches a 3D model, it sees that I have a Maya batch render node script inside my node view, and it launches Maya. And it sends all the position information of my 3D model to Maya. It sends the camera information, the camera field of view as well, or focal length. Maya does the rendering and sends back an image to Harmony. And now Maya is not able to give me deep image pixel information, which I need to be able to composite the images together, the 2D and 3D together seamlessly. So on top of using Maya, I'm also using RenderMan or Arnold, which is the render engine that's used inside Maya to give an image with deep pixel information. Now, what is deep pixel information? That's a whole other topic, but in a nutshell, when I'm rendering a 3D model like this one here, I have some transparent pixel for the glass. And when Maya renders the transparency from the glass, and it outputs an image, it outputs an image that has the RGB value of the glass, but it's also combined with the RGB value of the seat back in the, or the ship back in the 3D model. So this pixel has the value of the glass, but also the value of the back of the ship. And it also only has one Z depth value. So how can we composite this inside Harmony with the rest of the 2D? We can't, because we don't have enough information. What the deep pixel information does is that it has multiple samples per pixel. So when RenderMan or Arnold is rendering the 3D model, it renders a transparent glass, and it gives an RGB alpha value and a Z value for the glass. And then it renders what's behind the glass in the same pixel, but as a different sample with different RGB value, alpha value, and Z value. And then when we receive this image back in Harmony with all these Z values and multiple samples per pixel, we're able to incorporate or integrate a 2D model that will be in between two pixels. And this is how we can get the high quality rendering of, or seamless rendering between 2D and 3D models. Another portion where this is critical is where you have the edges of your model and you have character that's behind. I have a very good example of that here. So the image on the left is not using deep image information. So this is what you would get in regular software on the previous version of Harmony. You see there's artifacts where there's anti-aliasing between the 3D and the 2D. And if you look at the version rendered with deep image information, the rendering quality is seamless. There's no difference. You cannot tell which part is 2D and which part is 3D. And that's very important, because when you're using 3D models inside Harmony, you don't want that it shows that they're a 3D model. You want them to look as much 2D as you can. So this is why the seamless rendering with deep image information is really important in Harmony. That's pretty much it for the 3D part. I see we have a question.
Ernest is a really good question. Is the 3D movement based on the pivot point of the 3D object?
Sorry, is the what?
Is it based on the pivot point?
Yes, so when I'm selecting individual pieces here, so let me show you the, hi Ernest Chang, I guess. Here we go. Oh, I'm doing a render right now, so it's, it's slowing down. But what happens is that, you make your model inside your 3D modeling software. In this case, it was done in Maya. and you break out your model inside that software in the pieces that you want. You export your FBX or your Alembic file, and you import this in Harmony. And Harmony will be able to load that structure and select the individual pieces, and it will recognize the pivot that were placed inside Maya. So in case of this model here, I'll be able to, and yeah, I'll launch another rendering. I'll be able to select the wing and see the pivot at the base of the wing. And like on the car, if I select multiple pieces of the 3D model and I rotate those pieces, each of those pieces will be rotating around their own pivot point. They won't, unlike the 2D transform tool, which when you do a rotation, every piece rotates around one single pivot. When you're using the 3D transform tool, so on a 3D model, every piece rotates around their own axis, which makes it a lot faster to animate.
One more question before we move on. A few people have asked about Blender. So specifically, Carlos is asking, will this feature work with Blender or ZBrush, or is it limited to Maya?
I guess we're talking about the selection of subnodes or the animation of individual pieces from 3D models. As long as you're able to export your model in FBX or Alembic or Collada, we'll be able to read this information inside Harmony. And here you can see that the ship is a lot more complex, has a lot more keys or more pieces than the model I had of the pickup and getter scene. And when I have a model like this and I connect a subnode on that, I don't want to see all of these layers inside my timeline because I'm not animating all of these layers. So when I expand the subnode here, I'll see only the subnodes that actually have animation. So I can really concentrate on what I need to modify and not have a very, very big list inside Harmony. Another new feature that we've added, and this is more for the 2D animation, is the ability to display something in outline, a drawing in outline. For example, the helmet, the glass helmet of Selena here. If I want to animate her face, the helmet is kind of in my way. So I could select it and I could go in my timeline and disable it, but then I don't see the helmet anymore. I don't have a reference point anymore. So what I want to do is I want to display this in outline mode. So I select it, I go in my timeline, I press the O key, and this focuses my timeline on that layer. And then using the color, so this is the color of my track. If I just click once, that little pot here, it will display or turn on the outline mode, outline view mode for that drawing. And now I'm able to see the vector outline of the drawing. So I have a reference of that drawing, so I'm not animating the head outside of the helmet, but I'm now able to pick things inside the head of my character. So I can animate her eyes and make her maybe a little bit cross-eyed like this. All right, and I'm also able to change the color of this outline. So if I want to have a different color, if I double tap this and I select maybe bright red, when I turn on outline mode, it uses the same color in my timeline as it uses for the outline. So this is really a great tool to be able to hide something, but still see the reference and being able to select something that's behind. The next thing I will show you is the layer syncing. So what is layer syncing? Let me disable my camera right here. All right. So layer syncing is when you take two or more layers and you sync the timing of these layers together. This is really useful for paperless animation or for cutout animation. If you have multiple layers, multiple drawings, you want to make sure they are synced in time, you can sync those layers together. For example, I have a 2D animated scene here with a character jumping. And this is really a 2D drawing animation. So if I load the drawing view here, you can see it's just completely hand-drawn. Now what I want to do is I want to draw the tones or the highlight of this character. So I have a tone layer here, and I want to make sure that the timing of the tone is the same as the animation. So I will select the layer here, I will right-click, I will select Sync Layer With. Now I have a list of all the layers in my scene. I want to sync this with the boom animation layer. I click OK. And now you can see that right away the tone layer now has the same timing as the other layer. It doesn't have any drawings in it yet. They're all just empty cells inside my my X sheet, or inside my, if I look at the X sheet here, you can see that they now share the same timing. Even the key drawings and the breakdowns are marked the same in both. And I'm able to just start drawing. So I'll go and select one drawing, take my brush tool, maybe make it a little bit bigger by pressing the O key and clicking and dragging. I'm able to quickly draw a tone on this drawing, change to another drawing using the G key, and then I just draw the tones wherever I want them. There we go. And I'm not very good at drawing. You'll have to excuse my drawing ability. I'll go and I'll add a tone effect node right here. I'll click on the tone, I'll select the tone, and now I have the tone on my character that I've drawn myself. And if I change the timing of one layer, so I select either layer and I press the plus key on my keyboard, this extends the exposure of the drawing under that I selected, and you can see that both of them will now be timed in the same way. And at any point, if I want to unlink them, I can just right click and select unsync layer, and now they're not synced together anymore. Undo, they're resynced. Now I might have multiple layers I want to sync together. I have a tone, but I also have the light or the highlight that I want to make sure it syncs properly. Now I've changed the timing of the animation layer, so I'll have to sync that one as well. So I'll right click, sync layer with, boom animation, and now these three layers are synced together. They share exactly the same timing. This feature is also useful when you're doing cutout animation, but you use it in different ways. For example, you might have a character where the mouth is made of multiple layers, but you always want to make sure that these layers are always in sync together. So you'll sync those layers together using the layer sync. Or it could be maybe the shirt or the vest of the character. You have a piece for the front, you have a piece for the back, and when you have your character turning, you want to make sure that all of these drawings are synced together. So you sync them together using the timeline, and you don't have to worry about changing the timing of multiple layers. You just change one, and all the layers that are synced together get synced. So, and you can see sync layers with the little link, chain link in the timeline, but also in your node view, you can see the little dots here to show you that these are linked. And this feature is available in Harmony Premium and Harmony Advanced. Now, the next feature I want to show you is the easy flipping toolbar. We already had the easy flipping toolbar inside the previous version of Harmony, but we've added some more functionalities to it. And this is a really great tool for paperless animation when you're drawing directly inside the software. So you need to work from the drawing view, and you can flip through the different drawings using the F and the G key. But sometimes when you're drawing, you want to be able to preview a portion of the animation. So in the easy flipping toolbar, you have a play button. If I just hit play, it will pre-roll 3 drawings before and after, and it will just preview that animation. And I can set whatever speed I want. If I want it to be faster, it can be a little bit faster or a bit slower. And this mimics the ability to flip drawings, where if you're drawing on paper, traditional animators will take their piece of paper with all their fingers and they will flip those drawings to be able to preview what they're drawing. So now you can do that very easily with the easy flipping toolbar. And you can actually also assign a shortcut to the play. And I've just assigned the spacebar. So if I just hit the spacebar, this will play back a couple of frames before and after. And the spacebar is also very useful for panning your drawing view. So even though I've mapped the spacebar to easy flipping, to the playing of the drawings, if I press and hold the spacebar, I'm still able to move my view around. So it's, yeah, you need just to make sure that when you assign the shortcut, you duplicate the shortcut for the easy flipping. Now the next feature I'm going to show you will require me to go to a different scene here. And we'll be talking about the post copier. So the post copier is a script that already existed in previous version of the software, but we've really improved it, make it easier to use and more robust. And what it does is that, for example, I have the head of my character here. And the head is made out of multiple pieces, right? There's the eye, the pupil, the eyebrow, the mouth, the ears. And if I need to do a head turn of my character, it's going to be very complicated for the animator to move all of those pieces to do the proper head turn. So what you do is you preset or you create a template with all the angles that you require for your head. So I have a template here that contains, maybe I can make this a little bit bigger. There we go. That contains all the head angle, the front head, the quarter front head, the side head, with the different head tilting up, tilted down, and all the different mouth. And now I want to be able to use a specific frame from that template into my animation. So with the template selected, I will run the post copier script that I've added to my toolbar previously. And this opens a little window that has 3 sliders. One slider to control or to see different sides or different views of the head, the front view, the quarter front view, the side view. One slider to select if the head is tilting up or down, and another slider for changing the mouth. So I scroll through, I find the head that I want, tilting up, tilting down with the mouth that I want, and once I'm happy with that, I click on paste, and this copies all of these drawings directly to my scene. And what we've really improved in this version of the post copier is the ability to paste by name. So what the software does is it looks for the layers with the same name inside my scene, and it will paste the proper exposure, the proper drawings, and the proper keyframes on those layers. So this really makes it very easy to paste different angles of my head to a character. I don't have to modify a lot of pieces to do a head rotation. And this can be used for a lot of things, not just head turns. It can also be used for just maybe the mouth. If your mouth is made up of multiple layers, you can make a template with all the different mouth, and you can use the post copier to select them and use them in your scene. Or you can actually create a template with poses for the whole character, and you can go and select those poses and paste them into your scene. And this really, really improves the output and the efficiency of animators when they're using the software to animate. Another great example that can be used in this scene is the outline mode. So I have my branch here that's kind of hiding my character. So I just want to display this in outline. I'll display this in my timeline, and I'll click here. I can still see the outline of the branch, and now I'm able to select the hand that's behind the branch. Do we have any questions so far?
Yeah, so let's see what Ben Thompson has to say here. He has a question about layer syncing. The layer syncing only impacts the timing, not the drawing. If you change the tone drawing, it won't change the drawing in a synced layer, right?
Exactly. So the sync is really just syncing the timing. Each individual layer, each layer, drawing layer inside the timeline will still have their own drawing. So you saw when I synced the tone layer with the animation layer, it just put the timing in the tone layer, but it didn't create any drawings. So I was able to go and to draw my own drawings. And when I draw on the tone layer, it does not change the drawing on the animation layer. And the same thing when I linked the light layer, which was used for the highlight, this already contained all the drawings, and I synced them with the animation, and it didn't erase the drawing, it just set the timing to be the same and reuse the drawings that were already in the light layer. And if at any point you want to unsync layers, you can unsync them by right-clicking and selecting unsync, and it won't destroy anything. The layer would just keep the timing it had when it was synced the last time, and from then on, if you make timing changes to one or the other, if they're not synced anymore, the timing won't change together anymore. Another thing that we've made, it might be a little small change, but it's really useful. When you're working in database environment, especially, it can happen that when you're transferring files or scene files from one studio to another, or from the studio to a freelancer, you can get some missing palettes. And in the past, the missing palette would just not show up in your scene list. Now we still show the name of the palette that's missing. In this case, I called it missing palette. So you can see that you have a palette that's missing. The name is striked out in your color view. And if you look at the tooltip, you'll be able to see where that palette was originally. So it makes it easier to find missing palettes. A similar change we've done was in the color override. So just another small feature here. So if I connect a color override in my scene, I'll be able to see that if I have missing palettes, they'll be striked out. And if I leave my mouse over it, I'll be able to see the path to that palette on my file system, so I'm able to easily find it. And another improvement that we've done, for those of you that were familiar with Harmony 10.3, this is something that was possible back then, the ability to select multiple colors in a color override, change the mode of all of those colors by maybe changing it to new alpha, and editing the alpha of multiple colors at once. So I don't have to do it individually to each individual layer. I can select multiple layers, change their color, change your override mode from the color override. We've done other changes where we now support PSD files with 16-bit per channel, actually layers in PSD files that are in 16-bit per channel. In the past, we only supported the final composited image. Now we support the individual layers if your PSD file is 16-bit per channel. We also support PSB file, that's PSB like beta. PSB files are Photoshop files that are really, really big. When they go over, I think it's 30,000 pixels, and Photoshop will save in a new format that's called PSB. And now Harmony supports that format as well. On top of that format, we now support the deep image compositing, or the deep image formats like the EXR format that contains deep image information, to be able to import images from 3D software directly into software. Another great improvement we've done is with the Web Control Center. So we have a software called Web Control Center that allows studios to work with freelancers. So when you have people working in a studio and you have a database, everybody can access scenes in your database from within the studio environment. But if you want to bring work home, or if you want to send work to a freelancer, you need to export the scene, zip it up, put it in FTP. The freelancer downloads it on his computer, unzips it, works on it, zips it, and sends it back through FTP. And somebody needs to import this back into your database. With the Web Control Center, this really gives you a web interface of Web Control Center that can be accessed from outside the studio. So people can browse the database and download the scene they want to work on themselves without having somebody from the studio send them the scene, work on the scene, and import it back into the database using the Web Control Center. And what we've improved in this version of the Web Control Center is that you're able to upload a partial scene. So you don't have to send back the whole scene. Because if you download a scene and the scene maybe is 500 megs and you make a couple of modifications to one or two drawings, you change the timing, you don't need to send back all the drawings. You only need to send back the drawings that were modified and just the timing information. So with the update database scene functionality, Harmony will just send what has been modified in the scene back to the Harmony server that's inside the studio. So this makes the collaboration a lot easier from within Harmony using Harmony 14. Any questions so far?
So there's tons of questions, and we have about 20 minutes left, so we'll do our best to answer most of them. There's a couple of people who have been asking about the post copier. We will be doing another webinar on that feature later on this month or early in August. But there is one question that maybe we can answer right away. Does the new post copier require the template file to have the same layer structure as the character in the scene, or will it work as long as the layers that change are named the same thing?
So the option paste by name relies on the name of the layers. You have to remember one thing though. So paste by layer name. So it doesn't use the structure or the hierarchy that you have in your timeline like it used to do it in the past, where you had to go and make sure you select the right layer before using your post copier. Now you just select any piece from your character, and since it searches by name, it will be able to paste it. So if you do changes to the structure of your character, as long as you keep the same names for your layers and they stay in the same groups, because if you change group, then it won't be able to find them because it uses the name of the group and the name of the layer or the name of the node to find them inside your model. So as long as you keep those, this is fine, this will work.
Pascal is asking, for the outline mode to work, does the artwork have to be split to line art or color art layers?
No, it doesn't really care if it's line art, color art, or overlay or underlay. As long as it's vector, it will be able to display the outline of the vector drawing.
Good. So a couple people have asked about Harmony in the Unity game ability. We haven't really made any new advancements in that feature, but we will in our next version.
Actually, we've done one or two improvements.
Good.
One of the improvement is that in the past, when you work on animation for your games, and if you want to use our script to export, so from the game toolbar here, we've got two buttons to export to a spreadsheet and XML files or to an easel.js format. So in the past, each animation cycle for a specific character had to be done in different version of the scene. All in the same scene, but in different version, and you had to export each individual version individually. Now you're able to put all the animation cycles inside the same timeline, inside the same scene, and you use timeline markers to specify where each cycle is. So you select here, you add a marker, marker and frame, game marker, whatever. Okay, so now I have a marker inside my timeline, and when I export using the export to XML, I'm able to specify that I want to export using the markers in my timeline, and the script will recognize each animation cycle based on the markers in my timeline. This makes it a lot easier to see how each animation works with the previous animation. But it also makes it easier if you need to make a change to your skeleton. Everything is in the same version of the scene, so if you make a change to your skeleton, all the animation cycle inside the same version of the scene will be will get that modification on them.
So we'll go back to the post copier a little bit more. In what editions is post copier in?
I'm pretty sure it's in all 3 editions. Yeah, I've never really used it myself in Essential, but yeah, it should be because it's a script, so it can be used in any version.
Good. And Ben is asking, does the post copier work for all sorts of action templates, including deformers and groups of pegs and deformers as well?
Yes, yes. On my head here of my character, I have many deformers. So the post copier, if I select all of this, pretty sure I have some deformers. Oh, maybe I don't have any deformers on this guy, but yes. The post copier takes whatever keys are in your template at that specific frame, whether it's a drawing exposure, whether it's a key in a peg, or whether it's a key on a deformer. It will copy those values directly into your timeline.
Is there a full documentation for the post copier feature, or is that something that's coming?
This is a script. I'm not too sure about the documentation. I know that we have a webinar coming on the post copier, so we'll show you how to create your template, how to set up the template to be able to use them using the post copier script.
John wants to know, would you be able to use the post copier script to make changes to non-character animations like moving backgrounds?
Yeah, there's no, as long, it's just, it would be this, it's similar to, let's say, opening 2 scenes and copy and pasting keyframes from one scene to another. What people did in the past, instead of using the post copier, when they would create their master template of a character, they would add extra frames at the end with all the head turn angles, all the special poses that they needed to use often. Or they created a different scene and they would copy and paste from their timeline, the end of the timeline, into a specific frame. So they had to switch from the end of the timeline, go back to the original frame and paste. The post copier removes that awkward workflow where you can just open post copier window. While the post copier window, you're able to work freely in your scene to select the frame that you want and paste. And this works with characters, but with anything else, right? As long as it's data inside Harmony.
So we're going to go back to the beginning of the webinar when we were talking about 3D. So Jason wants to know, going back to the beginning of the video regarding deep compositing in 3D, RenderMan and Arnold, where you mentioned this feature. Is it available, when rendering with Mental Ray?
Unfortunately, Mental Ray is not able to give us the deep image information data that we require. Right now, the supported engines are RenderMan and Arnold. The example that I showed you where you have the with deep image information and without one was Maya and the other one was RenderMan, and it would have been the same result with Mental Ray. It's not able to give us the deep image information that we require for that. And actually, internally, Harmony, all the rendering is done now with deep pixel information. So it carries this through the chain as long as you're using composites that are set to 3D.
So Chris is wondering, does Harmony 13 support multiple channel, multiple view EXRs, or does it only support deep EXR?
Oh, that's a very good question. I think that we'll have to look that one up, and we'll get back to you on this.
Tito wants to know, is it possible to find colors from the color menu to the camera view?
So if I have a specific color and I want to find it where it's used in the camera view, you can't find a color from a palette inside a specific drawing. For example, if I select the tattoo color here, and well, like this, and I have my select tool, I can, it's been a long time since I've used this one. Select stroke with current color. It will select the stroke using the current color. It won't do that on the whole camera view here. It will only do that on the currently the drawing that's being edited, right? But the reverse is true. If I click any color on the character here, on any layer, I'm able to see which color it is inside my palette.
So John is wondering, can Harmony do a 360 camera render for use in a VR animation like Armin's special delivery animation? It seems to be a growing demand in the animation industry.
Not for now, no. That would be quite interesting feature. For sure, it requires the ability to have 3D models or 3D environments, which we have, but we don't have the ability to render a full 360 for
now. So can you please summarize which features are in each edition?
Yeah, so on the features that I showed you today, all the 2D, 3D integration and the deep image compositing, this is available in Harmony Premium. If we look at the outline mode, this is available in Premium only. Not in Premium, what I'm saying, in all editions, as well as the post copier and the easy flipping. And the layer syncing is available inside Advanced and Premium editions. And yeah, and I think that's pretty much it for the ones that I showed you. For sure, the support of PSV files and 16-bit per channel images. This is in across all edition. the ability to see your names of palettes being struck out. This is in all editions. Actually, the PSD file or support for. Okay. And the WebCC, of course, is only available when you have the server add-on. So the server add-on is available for Harmony Advanced or Harmony Premium. And when you have the server add-on, the WebCC is included inside this add-on, the Web Control Center.
So Alana wants to know, may we import FBX animations and apply them to Harmony characters?
You want to import animations from FBX. Yeah. So when you import an FBX, you have the ability to display the animation by typing the right timing information in the X sheet. And this is something that we can cover in one of our next webinars. So we're working on having more webinars on the new features to expand and explain how each of those features are used inside the software. We're going to have a webinar for the post copier, and we're going to have a webinar for the how to set up your 3D models for deep image compositing and also for animating them. And we'll cover all of those topics then.
Gleb wants to know, how do you set the vertical horizontal form from the template to the script?
Yes, so for the post copier has 3 sliders, and to be able to have those 3 sliders, the script needs to know where to find the frames that match with the position of the slider. And to do that, you actually need to create 3 layers in your X sheet. An SLV for vertical, SLH for horizontal, and SLX for slider extra. And in these layers and these columns, you put the timing of the position of your sliders, and this is something we'll cover in the webinar. But I can quickly show you very quickly if I select the post copy script here. You see that when I move the slider around, I have different sliders. So I have the vertical slider, which is this one here, that shows up, mid, and down. I have the horizontal slider that shows front, quarter front, side. And when I scroll through these, you can see that the frame number in the template changes. This is frame 1 of my template. So frame 1 of the template has the middle view of my face, the front view of the face, and that just closed mouth. When I go through the different mouth, I can see that the frame changes as the mouth change. And I have 24 mouth for the front view mid, and I have another 24 mouth for the front view up, and I have another 24 mouth for the front view down. So this brings me to 72 frames. And then I go to the quarter front view. If I go back to the start here, you'll see this is frame 73 in my template and so on. So I have a column that says from frame 1 to 72, I have the front view. From frame 1 to 24, I have the mid view for the front view, and another column that has the cycle every 24 frames.
Frederick wants to know if there are any changes in the Bitmap engine.
We don't have anything significant in the Bitmap engines from version 12. We still have all of these great new functionality that we've introduced back then to make your brush look more natural and have a lot more customization to really get the look and feel that you're looking for.
James is asking, has Harmony 14 fixed the problem of switching frame rates after starting a scene? In 12, switching caused audio sync problems when exporting a movie file.
This is kind of a problem that's external to Harmony because when you import a sound, if you have a sound that's 1 second long and you import this into a scene that's frame-based 24 frames per second, this sound will last for 24 frames, right? If you import the same sound into a scene that's 12 frames per second, the sound will span across 12 frames in your scene because it has 1 second. Now, if you change the timing or the FPS, the amount of frames that you have inside your scene per frame per second, a second will now have more frames or less frame, but the sound is always the same duration, right? A sound is not frame-based, a sound is time-based. So if you import a sound into a scene, the sound is 1 second long, your scene is 24 frames per second. Your sound will last for 1 second and will span across 24 frames. If you change the FPS, a harmony will not slow down or speed up the sound because that would be bad. The sound stays the same duration and stays the same second, but is now spans across the amount of frames that you have for a second.
So we're coming to the end of the webinar, so we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Some people are wondering when Harmony 14 will be available. It was released today. You should be receiving an email later this afternoon regarding your subscription, depending on your subscription and your upgrade capabilities. There will be an email. If not, you can always go to our website at toonboom.com/harmony and you'll be able to get all the details there. So one more question, and it comes from Carlos, and he's asking, will the UI be adaptable to high resolution displays? Working from my companion is quite hard.
So this is something we're working on for the future. It's not part of Harmony 14 release. If you were working with version 11 and before and some version 12, we did do an improvement while the development of version 12, where in the past it would not display at the proper size. So it doesn't scale anymore if you're using a recent version of Harmony 12 or Harmony 14, but we don't have the added support for high resolution displays. This is something we are working on for the future.
So Jared is asking, the feature where you can copy timeline, keyframes, etc. Will this work with syncing inverse kinetics with bone deformation?
The post copier, I'm guessing. Yes. So the post copier just copies the keyframes, all the timing information at the specific frame. So it will take the position, the rotation of your piece, and it will paste them directly into your timeline.
So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. We did not get to all your questions. We've been taking note of them, and hopefully we'll try to get back to you with some answers. But you can also email us the questions at webinars@toonboom.com, and we'll try to get to them as quickly as possible. And this webinar will be online within the next couple of days. And if you just go to our website, you'll be able to find a list of the new features and documentation that might support that. So thank you for joining us. Marc-André, you were great. Thank you as always. And there will be more webinars specific to Harmony 14 and its new features later on in the month.
All right, thank you everyone for attending, and hope to see you next time on our next webinar.